Hello, I'm John Frungen. I'm Executive Director of the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy at Stockton University. With me today is Eric Scheffler. He's the Atlantic County Sheriff, and he retired as a lieutenant from the Atlantic City Police Department. Sheriff Scheffler is also a member of the Hughes Center Steering Committee, which is our advisory board. Today, we're talking about the issue of PTSD and the risk of mental health and emotional problems among first responders and medical staff who are responding to the coronavirus crisis. Sheriff, let's start with a definition. What is post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD?
Well, good morning, John. Post-traumatic stress is a condition that people can suffer from that are involved in any type of trauma or critical incident. They either could be the victim of that trauma or they could actually witness that trauma. And what happens is that that trauma will affect us emotionally and mentally, and that during that time, if we're not able to treat it or to work with it, we don't have the resiliency capability to get through it. It starts building, and certain negative effects start happening to you. And, if you think about it, 50, 60 years ago, it was called being shell shocked. People were coming back from the war. However, you don't have to be a war veteran to be affected by post-traumatic stress.
So then, who is vulnerable? Who is susceptible to this? And what are the signs that someone is experiencing?
Well, we're all acceptable to it. And when I say all, I mean everyone from a 8-year-old child and even younger to an adult. And it doesn't matter what profession you're in. Again, it doesn't. You don't have to actually be involved in the incident itself. You could witness the incident. I mean, it could be life and death situation. It could be sexually being abused. It could be mentally being abused. It could be many different types of trauma. It could be a car accident where you saw death or carnage, or you could be passing by it. So we're all acceptable to post-traumatic stress. And some of the symptoms of it are that you relive that incident over and over again, that you have anxiety and stress, that you have you're sleepless, and you have depression, and all those different things that can affect us in our daily lives.
And clearly, people who are first responders are often in situations like that. First responders and healthcare providers are, on the front lines now of the coronavirus crisis. They're working long, hard hours, often with very sick people and people who sometimes are dying. What is the likelihood that these people may suffer from PTSD or some other ill effects?
Well, it still remains to be seen, honestly, John, how this crisis is going to affect not only first responders, but the community at large. I mean, this is what we call a thing called operational stress, which is a long, prolonged time of dealing with the unknown. Humans, we like to know what's going to happen, right? We want to be able to predict what's next. We like that safety net, that reassurance that everything's going to be all right. Well, this is a prolonged incident of stress that we're all being affected by. And
Mhm.
we don't have the known, and we can't control the day-to-day happenings of this virus. So this affects all of us negatively. And, as you said, healthcare workers and first responders are on the front lines of this. And a lot of us are staying quarantined, but we have to go outside every single day and deal with the public because they need help, from everything from being in the hospital to delivering people food. Honestly, at this time, I mean, our roles have changed. Picking up people's medicines, those that are shut-ins. I mean, we're still being in close proximity with someone else. So then we have to go back to our homes, right? And the fear and that unknown of going back to your home and possibly affecting your family is another anxiety, fear, and stress that is affecting all of us. But don't forget about all the other, people on the front lines, the heroes of our day, our grocery store workers, our delivery people, our gas station attendants. all these other different functions are keeping us as a society going forward, and their possibility of exposure.
Sheriff, I've read some reports where people in some of these hospitals in North Jersey and New York that are just overwhelmed are describing it like a war zone. Um, would you say these workers are certainly going to be at risk that have to, somehow deal with this trauma?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's normal to have, this stress, this overload, this anxiety. If you didn't have these things happening during this type of crisis, that's not normal. However, we have to be able to reset ourselves, right? And that's one of the building blocks of resiliency that we know that can affect us and help us get through stress. And we have to be able to do self care. We have to take time and actually force ourselves, believe it or not, do self care. You got to force yourself to read a book, force yourself to go work out, force yourself to disconnect from the pandemic and stop listening for shutting off your phone, shutting off the news. And
Hmm.
we literally, and you would think you wouldn't have to force yourself, but you do. You get so exhausted. It's called, you come home from your daily work. You're so exhausted, you can't functionally get off the couch, right? So, but we didn't break any bricks. We didn't dig any ditches. So why are we so exhausted? Well, that's mental stress. That's the beginning of depression, right? We dive into that low. We were in hypervigilance for so long that we fall down onto the other side of that hill when we come home. Those are the times that you have to say, okay, I know I'm physically, mentally, exhausted more mentally than anything. I need to reset myself. I need to go work out. I need to go for a walk. I need to read a book. I need to do something to help, create self-care. Because if we don't, what happens is this builds up. So, the old saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. This continues to build up to a point there we can't handle it anymore mentally, and we shut down completely.
So there are strategies to deal with this. Do you think, as a society, we're good at communicating this to our frontline people? Are they getting this kind of message?
Well, I think that, in law enforcement in particular, that I think we've changed that model. Most, if not all, law enforcement executives through New Jersey and have embraced resiliency and understanding the mental stress that our officers go through. I was on the working group to bring the resiliency program to the state of New Jersey. It was gifted by the FBI National Academy. Billy Mazer, who's a retired deputy chief from Lang City, brought it to New Jersey. We were on the first working group, and they developed that program off of that. And I'm a FBI National Academy trained the trainer in resiliency, as so is Billy. And he goes around. He actually goes around the country and teaches other departments. But New Jersey is the first state in the entire country to mandate that resiliency be trained to all our officers.
Would you explain just a little briefly what resiliency is, what that means?
So there's a concept about the mental stress and our physical health that we're affected on a daily basis, and when these incidents happen, and because humans are resilient in nature, we will deal with it. We will survive it. We will get through it. But we have a couple choices when we do that. We could either take negative survival skills and make that a part of ourselves to get through it, or we can take positive survival skills. So let's talk about negative ones real quick. What are some negative things that for me to get through some mental health issues? Well, I can go drink, right? I can go do drugs. I can go gamble. I can go cheat on my family or my wife. I can do things that take me away from that stress, but are negative effects to my family. Right? That's still survival, and they may lead down the road to something even worse. Um, but I'm going to get through this, or I could do positive things, and the positive things are what we call the resiliency pillars, right? And there's four of them. There's mental, physical, spiritual, and social, and we can continue to build those blocks and create positive ways to deal with stress. So that's what resiliency is, And it's interesting, we all have those blocks filled some way, but because of the stress, and we talked about how much it can affect us mentally, and it feels like it's physical, right? I come home from a long day of work in the office and I am completely exhausted. I mean, I'm really exhausted. I can't get off the couch. I can go get a bag of potato chips and a beer. That might relax me and bring me back, or I can go for a walk, because I realize that I need to reset that, because that's the stress. That's being hyper vigilant a long period of time. And then when you no longer have to be hyper vigilant, you dive down into a low. So resiliency allows us to understand that I need to stay connected with my family. I need to have, a spiritual component. And that could be a multitude of different things. That could be anything from meditation to having a strong relationship with a church or God or whatever you believe in. I need social. I can't tell my family, well, I'm too tired to go hang out or make that puzzle with you or deal with you. I need to force myself to interact with people, and that's how we stay connected. I need to be able to maybe work out a little bit and whatever I can. I can go to the gym. Well, you can't go to the gym today, but you can still do calisthenics, and there's a lot of workouts online that you can do, everything
Hmm.
from low impact to high impact. Um, I need to do those things, and those things are what help us get through the stress of the day. That allows us to deal with it, reset ourselves, so that stress doesn't turn into mental health issues.
So in this time of high stress, this is good advice for pretty much all of us, from those on the front line to those of us who are sheltering in place, um, strategies to get through this.
Absolutely. And John, what I like, our listeners to understand, first and foremost, is the stress of this pandemic is normal. It's natural. We
Mhm.
all have it, regardless of who you are. Don't think you're weak. Don't think you're not dealing with it right. This is not a sign of weakness. This is natural. This is something that is happening to every single one of us. You want to go back to the things that have helped you in the past to reset your stress during stressful times, whatever those stressful times may have been. And if you can't reset yourself and you're spiraling, then one of the strongest thing, one of the bravest things you can do is to reach out for a professional to help you get through this. Now, I understand that times have absolutely changed, but there's teletherapy that's out there, and many of the therapists that are available, especially in our area, are available by teletherapy. So they're doing sessions online, they're doing sessions on phones. We're going to make sure that some of those resources are on our site as well, right, John?
Right. We're going to be putting resources from Sheriff and from some that the Hughes Center found on our website, www.stockton.edu/Hughes Center. Sheriff, I want to really thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I know you're very busy, but this is an important topic, and the information you provided, I think, is really useful and helpful.
Thank you, John. And please be safe and stay healthy, sir.
Same to you. Thank you.